his background, Nobody Studios, all of this good stuff. It's going to be a really great conversation, just learning more. So I'll wait until he kind of pops in.
Thank you.
In
Thank you,
here.
Taylor. Thank you. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
Welcome to another episode of Inside Nobody. Nobody Studios is a crowd-infused venture studio that brings together creators, entrepreneurs, and investors to build businesses that shape a more vibrant, human, and equitable future. And thanks for having us today. Taylor, thanks for joining us. It's really a pleasure to have you. Taylor, as you know, one of our fellow nobodies and one of our creators helping to spread the word. Taylor, thanks for joining us today, and I'm happy to participate in your interview.
Yes, I'm super, super excited. And it looks like, so when I hit to accept to invite you, it hasn't looked like it's happened on Instagram yet. I don't know if you're seeing something different on your end.
Let's see.
Nobody crowd is unable to join.
Let's see.
Technology, guys, right? Like, isn't this always the way? It's just, you just never know what you're going to get. Even if you're like so prepared, it's never 100%.
Okay, I think we're joining. So now we're live on multiple platforms. We're live on Facebook,
there
Instagram, LinkedIn. Hey, all right.
All right, turn down my volume so we don't get an echo. Perfect. There we go. Now we're solid. Okay, awesome. Well, I am so excited to be here today chatting with Kyle. So welcome everyone. Thank you for joining this live. And so let's just jump right in. So Kyle, tell us a little bit about yourself, your background. Who are you?
Sure. So I'm Kyle Kane. I'm currently the Chief Marketing Officer for Nobody Studios. And I'm absolutely thrilled to be here to share this very unique message for this historic moment in time where anyone can participate in owning a piece of the next great company. My background is traditionally in entertainment, marketing, consumer products. I'm the former vice president of Universal Music Group. I spent most of my career crafting the taste and tone of artists and brands. And very quickly, we saw that brands were fueling the cost of a lot of the creative content. So I opened up a couple of production facilities in New York and New Jersey, and we started producing content. We won a couple of Emmys, and then we saw brand dollars flow out of traditional marketing and product placement. As a lot of the brands I was working with really wanted to put their products and services in the hands of people that are having a good time so that those synapses start to fire and they could take advantage of that consumer psychology. So anyway, we became live event producers to take advantage of that. And I started producing 10 live 2-hour live events each year for CBS. We produced some tentpole events around the Grammys and the Super Bowl each year. And very quickly, again, we saw that, the time was ripe for all of these new marketing tools and technologies that were coming in, but we felt like they just weren't doing a great job of resonating with humans. They were doing a good job of collecting data and segmenting the market. But, when it comes to building relationships, I mean, we found that today's business is really relational. It's not transactional. And so we wanted to put the human element back into the company creation process. And so that's why I'm excited to join Nobody Studios, and I'm excited to share this message with your audience.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's amazing. You've done some really incredible things. And I think our audience is probably super jazzed about where you're coming from. And I was really interested to hear that you had kind of this music and starting companies background. So how did you get into that? Like how did you become interested in doing something like this? Was it something you had always wanted to do as a kid, or was it kind of a developing thing?
Well, yeah, you could say I've always been an entrepreneur. I mean, even at 7 years old, I was hustling baseball and basketball cards for lunch money in the bathroom. So I've always been a little bit of a hustler. But I found the company creation process to be the most rewarding. And our chief marketing or our chief nobody, Mark McNally, says all the time, when you look at the world and you see something you want to change, the startup vehicle is the best way to be able to do that, to really impact real change in the world. And so I've built, I don't know, 40 or 50 brands over my career. So a lot of brands have failed and many of them were successful. And so, taking those learnings and bringing them into the studio and helping other entrepreneurs to avoid some of those same mistakes, but also to collaborate from different diverse thinkers from every corner of the globe is really an exciting proposition and gets me out of bed every morning.
Yeah, absolutely. To be able to support those brands and really help them to build. I mean, that is such a huge mission and something that I know that a lot of us are working on right now, like trying to build our brand, whether that be a company, a side hustle, our personal brand, etc. What would you say are like the top 3 things that people should think about when they are creating a brand and trying to be successful as either their own brand or for their company?
The top three things. Well, there's probably 100 things. No, I found that the success of a brand, it's never one or two or three things that really make the difference. It's 100 subtle things, along the way that make the
Mhm,
difference. I think you could probably say the same thing about a lot of things in life. But number one is, I would make sure that you check your why. Understand
mm,
why you're getting into the business, why you're choosing this particular path or this particular product or service to bring to market, because the ebb and flow of the entrepreneurial spirit is not for the faint of heart, and you're going to need a strong why in order to maintain that course, so that you're not too down when things go bad, and you're also not too excited when things are really good, because that you understand the ebb and flow of that process. um, if there was another thing, I would say, make sure that you commit to really focusing on being an expert in your craft, and
mhm.
not necessarily an expert in deed, but an expert in practice, because
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, we can only make decisions based on the best information we have access to at the time. And the world is changing so quickly, it's almost impossible to keep our fingers on the pulse of every industry that we want to affect. But making a commitment to stay on top, to keep your fingers on the pulse, making sure that you're plugged in, making sure that you're not the smartest guy in the room, making sure that you're continuously learning. One of my mentors used to say every day is a school day, and I found that the older I get, the more true it is that every day, if you're not learning, then you're forgetting. And so we want to make sure that we're continuing to strive and make sure that we give our companies and our portfolio codes the best and most competitive opportunity in the market.
I love that, and I think that'll resonate a lot with my audience. They hear me talk a lot about having a really strong why, because if you don't have a strong why, like, what's gonna get you out of bed in the morning? What's gonna get you excited to do everything? Because we all have those mornings, right, where you wake up and you're just like, "Oh, I don't want to." Like, whatever that thing is, even if you love the thing that you're doing, sometimes that can be hard, so having that why is really important. And so you also mentioned that, you've kind of seen with companies and brands, like, they made mistakes, they had challenges, and you work with them to avoid those. What are the top mistakes and challenges that you see new brands, new companies making?
Well, every day we're making mistakes. If we're not making mistakes, then we're not being creative enough. And we've in Nobody Studios, we've actually trademarked the word frugressive, which is it's a combination of the words frugal and creative and aggressive.
Mhm.
And
Mm.
and certainly, to be aggressive and to make a commitment to be aggressive, you're going to make mistakes, and that's a part of the process. So the question becomes, how do you learn from those mistakes? How quickly can you learn from those mistakes? And then how can you take those learnings into a system where you're not repeating those mistakes as an organization? So I
Yeah.
think that's where we are now. Is that every day we're learning from our mistakes. Every day we're listening to our community. We're learning about the content that we're creating, and how it's resonating or not, and taking those learnings into the next batch of content.
Yeah.
In terms of some of the mistakes that brands make, often I think it's really not listening to their audience.
Mm.
You need to stay lean and mean to be able to pivot in today's market very quickly, because the market changes so quickly and consumers are very finicky, and it's a crowded space. And so having the mechanisms in place to be able to listen, to gauge sentiment, to know how your brand is doing, what people are saying. I mean, it's impossible for us to be a part of every conversation that's happening, right? And if we're doing our job right, there are multiple conversations happening that we're not a part of. So how do we listen to those conversations? How do we
Mm.
play an active role in them? And how scalable is that? So those are some of the mistakes that I think brands make early on, is that they don't think about making sure that foundation is laid first before
Mm.
they turn the heat up. And I always say, turning the heat up with the windows open is something that a lot of brands do. Spending money on ads, spending money on expensive placements or expensive influencers before laying that strong foundation and keeping those windows tight. Oftentimes, it's like running the heat with the windows open.
Yeah, that's such a that's such a great analogy and such a great point. So let's pivot a little bit. We've been talking about this, but we haven't really talked about what it is. What is Nobody Studios?
So Nobody Studios is a venture studio. So if you're not familiar with what a venture studio is, most people are familiar with venture capital. Venture capital gets a bad rap sometimes, but ultimately it's the easiest way to tap into a war chest of capital, right? And what we found out is that in today's model, and particularly with the Nobody Studios models, that you don't need a war chest of capital to bring a company to market today. So we take the best of what VC has, which is the ability to pause and merge and kill companies to make them more competitive. And we combine that with crowdfund. Most people know Kickstarter and Indiegogo and GoFundMe, and
Mhm.
what they might not know is that under Reg CF, the SEC allows us to actually fund companies through the same model as the Kickstarter or GoFundMe. So we're combining crowdfunding and venture capital so that every company we create graduates with an army of influencers. It also allows us to keep our fingers on the pulse of what's happening, so our crowd can participate every step of the way, from what companies we create and what names of the companies to how we spend our money, and which companies go to market, what resources they get. So allowing the crowd to participate, make sure that every company actually serves a real purpose in the community once
Mm.
it's launched. So that's an important piece. The way that we're building companies, we use a proprietary company creation model. And I mentioned Progressive earlier. And it's important to understand that we have a unique way about doing things, because it's hard enough to build one company in 5 years, and we have the audacious goal of building 100 companies in 5 years. So there must be something cool about what we're doing. And that's why we've attracted so many amazing people to the journey. I mean, we've got executives from Amazon, Google, Facebook, Coca-Cola, American Airlines, Skype, Stripe. I mean, you name it. So we have, I think, over 650 investors right now,
Wow.
currently. And we have an active campaign on crowdfund on a Republic. So it's republic.com/nobodystudios. And you can learn more about how to participate as an investor, how to roll your sleeves up and be a part of the Nobody Network.
Love that. That is so awesome. I think that what you guys have been able to do and create, I think, is really inspiring. And so I'm curious, where, like, what was the spark, the inspiration? Like, where did this initially come from?
Well, the idea came from observations of the world. We're working with creators like yourself who, you have ideas for things, right? You're traveling the world, you see things that could be better, you have ideas that you want to find their place in the world, but you don't always have the time or the team or the money or the experience to bring these ideas into market and to turn them into profitable companies. So from my perspective, that was one of the first inclinations that there's a problem here. And what we noticed is that, there's going to be a dozen paradigm shifts, just like the internet was for us, right? They're going to happen quickly and in succession. And we feel like the current venture capital model is just not in a position to meet the demand to scale out as many solutions to the problems that we might face. So, you've got this climate that's ripe for solutions. You've got these people that want to create the solutions, but there seemed to be a gap. So
Mhm.
that's where the idea was born of taking the crowd and bringing them together in a way that's democratizing the investment process, and where we're able to test and scale and validate companies very quickly so that we can reinvest in the ones that are working, pull back on the ones that are not, and ultimately create this living, breathing machine that is solving the world's problems one company at a time.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And so, these companies that you're building and creating to be, successful, is it a combination of, kind of like incubator space, like we're building this in house plus ideas that are coming externally, or is it one or the other? What does that look like?
Yeah, there's components to it. We're not an accelerator, we're not an incubator, and there's quite a few different terminologies around building companies and scaling
Hmm.
companies, but
Hmm.
ultimately none of them fit us exactly. Because we take the best of what we found in those various degrees of company building and company support processes, and we bring it all in house. Most of the companies we create will come from our idea lab. They will be harvested and grown in house. There are a couple of exceptions where we found alignment with vertically integrated companies, or what we call building block companies, meaning companies
Mm.
that we feel by bringing them into the studio, we can extrapolate what they do well, not only at the studio level, but for each of our newcos. So in those cases, those are the exceptions. But for the most part, unlike an accelerator and unlike an incubator, we are sourcing these companies from our Nobody network. We are
Mm.
assigning them KPIs and a roadmap, and we're testing them and validating them along the way. And if it works, we'll give them some more money and a roadmap. And if that works, then we'll scale it. And so we found that there's really no other program and no other model that exists like this. There are many other venture studios, but none of them that I found have assembled a team that we have, and that have these proprietary processes that we have to be able to test and validate companies really quickly.
That is really awesome. And so if someone's hearing this and they're like, I have the idea, like I have the business, I have the thing, can they work with Nobody Studios? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, as you can imagine, ideas can come from anywhere. And we're of the school of thought that, chances are the ideas of today and tomorrow are not going to be solved by someone who looks like Warren Buffett, who's maybe been out of the, in his ivory tower office for the last few decades, but it's probably going to come from someone like a 12-year-old girl playing Minecraft on her couch right now in New Delhi. She's probably going to come up with the solution to the next problem of our generation. But one of the challenges is that she doesn't see herself as an investor. Oftentimes she
Mm.
doesn't see herself as being able to affect that kind of change on the world. So that becomes our opportunity and also our challenge is to allow her to see herself as a venture investor. And that's why we've chosen the crowdfund model as the vehicle. We've been able to reduce all the barriers to entry, such as credit score and how much money you have in the bank and how liquid are you and do you come from a family office and what your dad's last name is. No longer do those things matter in terms of your ability to participate and to affect the next great company.
That's incredible. That is fantastic. So I think the next question that I have, and maybe some of the other people have, is where do you find your investors? Where, like, what does that process look like?
That's the wonderful thing is that, because we've removed these barriers, virtually anyone can invest in Nobody Studios.
Love that.
There are a couple of caveats, depending on there are a couple of pockets in the world that are restricted. And if you're a newborn baby, chances are you're not going to be able to invest in the studio. But for the most part, we are all inclusive. We're inviting everyone to pull up a seat at the table. We're finding investors from every corner of the world. I mean, from the barista who gave me a coffee this morning, who's investing in the studio today, to our existing Nobody network and influencers and communities that folks like you are bringing to the table because of conversations like this. So, the more that we can get out and get in front of folks, the better we're going to be as a studio, because the more diverse thinkers we're going to be able to bring into the fold to help solve these problems and create the next batch of great companies.
Love that. Love how accessible that you've made this. And one of the questions I was going to ask earlier, but I feel like maybe you've already answered it, is how is Nobody Studios really differentiating themselves from the competition? I feel like you've said everything, but maybe there's some other pieces that I don't know yet.
Well, yeah, I mean, we've covered a couple of points I think that make us unique, but ultimately it's us. It's the people, it's you, it's me, it's the crowd, it's what we do. The work that we do here during our short time on earth is the legacy that we leave when we're gone, right? So we are what make the difference. It's what we do every day. And so who we can inspire and who we can touch and what is the mark that we can leave on this world together. And I know that we can accomplish more together than either of us can on our own. So, that's ultimately what makes us different, is that it's our steadfast belief that we're stronger together. And as cliche as it may sound, you can look at our track record as a team, and you can look at the 9 billion in exits and 5 billion in IPOs from our leadership team. You can look at the 14 companies we have in development, or the 3 or 4 that are in market now. And you can look at the millions of dollars that are raised from every corner of the globe. And you'll probably get a good idea that this train is moving with or without you. So we are stronger the more people that we can bring on board.
Love that. Collaboration over competition. I'm all
That's
about it.
right. Well
That's
said.
awesome.
Yes.
So, what is like the 5-10 year vision for Nobody Studios? Like, where are you guys going? What do you think?
In 5 years, we are going to have 100 companies in market. And how those companies roll out, I mean, we know that they won't all make it, right? But we know that the more companies we can roll out there, the more likely that we're going to make real change and impact, real positive change in the world. So that's why, oftentimes, and we talked about mistakes and being aggressive and being frugal. And, these are important components to accomplishing our goal. So, Mark mentions what he defines as success. And there's something to that, is that, someone in a country that we've never been will be affected by Nobody Studios through a conversation that we've never had, right? They've learned about it through someone else. They've invested about it through someone else. They've created a company, and that company has created a product or service that has touched people's lives. And when that happens asynchronously from us, I think that's when, we can say, hey, we did something right.
Awesome. That is so great. Well, we're running up to about 20 minutes, and I don't want to hold you forever, Kyle. But do
Yeah.
you have any last thoughts or advice or information that you'd like to share with people who either would like to be a part of Nobody Studios or who are looking to start a business?
Yeah. So there's no cookie cutter approach to starting a business. I would say the best advice I can give is reach out. One of the things that we pride ourselves on is being accessible, and we've got a massive team of global nobodies who all are willing to contribute their support and their learnings and their experience. So myself included, you can reach me at the Kyle X Kane on Instagram or Kyle at nobodystudios.com. And ideally, you're going to republic.com/nobody studios and you're learning more about what we're doing. And you can invest as little as $100 and join the team. But regardless of your decision to invest or not, we want to provide value. I mean, that's why we're here. So feel free to reach out to me or anyone on the team, and I'd be happy to talk about your individual business and what your plans are for marketing and making sure that we can help provide some value along the way.
That is so awesome. And you can make sure also to follow Nobody Studios, the Nobody Crowd, on Instagram for those of you watching on Instagram. Any other handles or website that we should direct them to? I see you have republic.com/Nobody Studios,
Yes.
at least here in the StreamYard.
Yes, yes. So republic.com/nobody studios is our crowdfund page. And you can follow all of our social channels at nobody crowd. And yeah, check out our YouTube page. You'll see some new videos that we've invested in that we feel like will really do a good job of breaking down this, sort of complex venture studio into something that's bite-sized, something that's easy to understand. And reach out the second that you have a question, because I'd really love to urge everyone to just start thinking about the future and start thinking about legacy and the mark that you're going to leave. And yeah, that's it. I look forward to speaking to all of you in some capacity or another. And thank you, Taylor, for facilitating this conversation, and looking forward to what comes from it.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for chatting with me. This was such a great conversation, and I hope you all enjoyed. Make sure to follow at all of the handles and check out republic.com/Nobody Studios so you guys can get started. Thank you again, Kyle. I hope you have a great
Thank
rest of
you,
your
Taylor.
day.
Thank you. Cheers.
All right. Bye.